Welcome back to the International Wealth Builders Talk Radio Show. And I am your host, Michelle Estelle, the homebuyer coach here on KCAA Broadcasting Network, 1050 AM and 106.5 FM. We are affiliated with CNBC, NBC News, NBC Sports, and we cover over 5 million households in the greater Los Angeles area. If you have missed any of our previous shows, you can watch us on our TV streaming channel distribution on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and the Android app. All you have to do is subscribe to the Building Solid Foundations channel to see those previous shows. Now, some of you may have additional questions on my previous segments on the questions that I'm most asked in my mortgage profession. And you can always reach out to me by cell phone at my phone number 909-229-1730. This show is for advertisement and informational and educational purposes only. There is no commitment to lend, and you do have to get qualified to buy a home and get pre-qualified and meet all of the guidelines for the particular financing. What I am doing today is giving you an insight, answering questions, and educating you on the home buying process as your home buying coach. And this is from my nearly 40 years in the mortgage industry, helping families to achieve home ownership and answering questions on a daily basis about the market, about what programs are available, about how to finance a home. So in this final segment, I'm going to wrap up what we talked about in the previous segments. First question I'm always asked is it a good time to buy a home? And I say the best time and only time to buy a home is when you are ready, when you can afford it, when you find the house that meets your needs, when you are prepared with your budget and have stable income. It is not the market that dictates when is a good time to buy a home. It's your preparation. So the other thing I always say is don't say, wait, I'm waiting for something to happen, something out of your control, something on the outside you're waiting for in order to jump in on homeownership. You shouldn't be waiting. You should be preparing. You should be analyzing what's right for you. You need to know if it's time for you to rent right now because you're not sure where you want to live. You like to move around every couple years. You want to see the world or see the United States. And maybe you just don't want to buy yet. That's a good reason. There are good reasons to rent, but there's tons of reasons why to buy a home, even if you didn't want to move, because you could buy that home, live in it for a couple years, and then you could move. And you could rent somewhere else, and you can rent your property out. You could visit other places and then come back to your property. So if you intend to keep a property for 7 to 10 years, the market is not what's going to dictate that. It's your preparation. And when you're ready, you should buy a home. Second, we went over interest rates. Interest rates have a relative scale. Anytime the interest rate is set at one point, there is a wish or a consideration for it to be lower. If it's at 10, you want 9.99. If it's at 4, you want 3. If it's at 3, you want 2. People who had the opportunity to do something in a market of 2% interest rate still wanted to know if it was going to go down. Some people. So it is relative. And yes, interest rates are on the higher end right now, but they're actually closer to the national average or the long-term average of interest rates than that 2 or 3% was. So rates in the 6s and 7s are very common over time. But the last time we saw the quick increase in interest rates was about 40 years ago. It was the same time that we had high inflation and we had a rapid increase of interest rates. And that's what we're seeing right now is a reaction to inflation and to the current economic market. But we still have relatively low interest rates on the overall, or at least more in line with the long-term history of where mortgage interest rates have been. Another thing that I talked about is how fortunate we are in the United States that we have a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, because in other countries, they don't offer this long-term lock-in of an interest rate or a payment. you either have a variable component, or you have a shorter term, or you have a balloon payment. So we have an opportunity to have the same principal and interest payment to pay back our debt for the entire 30 years. Now, again, in another show, we're going to talk more about taxes and insurance. Taxes and insurance are on that home, even if you don't have a loan. You own your home free and clear, you're still paying taxes and you're still having some type of insurance coverage. So even though if you have an impound account, those costs are part of your payment, they are not part of the payment that pays back the debt. So your debt payment for your loan is going to stay the same for as long as you have that loan and through 30 years. That is a huge advantage because you'll know what your housing payment is going to be. And even with the increase in tax and fluctuation with property taxes and insurance, you're going to have a relative knowledge of what your housing budget is when you own a home. And that's a big plus. And we did talk about house prices. And my personal opinion is, we'll see the market cool down, and we have, but I don't see this big crash in prices. We have none of the same situations or components of what caused us to have a housing bubble crash in 2008. We just don't have it. We don't have the same circumstances. We have people with equity in their homes and very low fixed rate mortgages, very low mortgage payments. People who don't have to sell maybe aren't going to sell, and we have a shortage of homes. When we have a shortage of homes, we have a demand. We have a high demand and low inventory, then prices will remain stable. We may not be seeing that projection of your house going up. One neighbor sells for 600,000, the next neighbor sells for 630, the next neighbor sells for 670, and rapidly those values go up. We are not seeing that, but we're certainly seeing more of a stable balance of home prices, and they're still high because there's not a lot of homes. And again, this will be from market to market. If you're ready to buy and you can't afford in a certain neighborhood, you may need to look out. You may need to look in another state. You may need to look in another county or community. Fortunately, some companies are still doing telecommuting, so you may be able to live in an area and not have to drive to work. That might present the perfect opportunity for you to pick up real estate and live in it and fix your shelter budget and be able to have equity and amortization and be in a great position in the long run. So I hope that all of this really helps you and gets you motivated to get prepared and pre-qualified, know your numbers, know your budget, and get you ready to buy. The other preparation thing that I really want to mention is that keeping debt low is important. And one of the things that we see a huge trend is people buying expensive cars and having very large car payments. I would advise you to not do that. So I thank you so much for joining us today, and I look forward to our next show next month. And if you have any questions regarding mortgage, please give me a call at 909-229-1730. I would love to answer any of your questions, and thank you for joining us.